Hello everybody, and welcome back to RPG Horror Stories. I'm Firestar, welcome to the Foundry, and I hope you enjoy your stay. We'll be looking at a few more lighthearted stories today, just to cleanse the palate. Let's get right into it. Our first horror story is titled, DM Made Character Immune to Fire, Take Heat Damage, posted by u/Arcanus Ultra. In our D&D crew, I was the regular DM, but because of forgotten issues, someone else had to take over. A character used a form of levitation to try and get across a river of lava. As he was passing it, the DM said, "Okay, you take X points of damage from being so close to the lava." The affected player said, "I'm immune to fire damage." The DM responded, "It's not fire damage, it's heat damage." This understandably confused everyone and led to an argument that heat and fire were the same thing. Someone even pulled up the Game Mastery Guide where it said immunity to fire meant immunity to lava. The DM said that only counted towards direct contact with the lava and not the heat coming off of it. He would not budge. I didn't witness the situation directly, but it was repeatedly repeated to me as the players begged me to DM again. I will say that DM did eventually grow and become a pretty good DM over time. He confided in me that he didn't want to reverse a ruling so early in his DMing career because he didn't want to seem like a pushover. And yeah, in the comments, it seems that more people are discussing, it's a newbie DM mistake. I don't want to seem like a pushover, so I'll make sure everyone can tell I'm a newbie, because newbie mistake. OP responds, "The sad part was the guy had been playing D&D for at least 4 years at that point. As a player with me, and as a player under me. I kinda felt like he should have known, but the pressures of being a DM can be surprising for newbies. It's a completely different feeling being on the other side of the table. I've been both. I am both still. Every Sunday I'm a player, and Monday I'm a GM. There's a lot more stress, not necessarily bad, to being a GM. Being a player is just a treat. It is just a newbie mistake. It's not a big deal. It was probably a little frustrating in the moment to have to take the damage, but honestly, I'm sure that the player was fine, and hearing that the DM grew out of that and learned how to DM better is good to hear too. As the comments said, being a DM can be much more stressful than being a player. I've done a bit of both, though I have a lot more experience with playing, so I can't say I know for sure how it feels to DM a very long-form campaign, but I have fallen into the trap of getting stressed out and making random rulings before. I personally tend to go towards the rule of cool if I don't know something and don't want to take too much time to look it up, but it can be difficult one way or another, so I can't really blame this DM. I'm just glad to learn that they ended up growing from that and that they are still playing to this day. Our second horror story is titled, Shortest One-Shot Ever, posted by u/Jojo Warrior. This was circa 2007 or 8 at uni. I was part of GameSock, which involves board games and TTRPGs. A 3.5 one-shot was planned for a bunch of us who were good friends but didn't play TTRPGs together very much, as we were in separate campaigns at the time. There was good notice given to make sure everyone could attend, enough notice that I was able to draw art of the character I wanted to play, a monk with a swashbuckling style who fought primarily by kicking and had a set of killer heals. The plan was, though, that we'd stat the characters together to ensure a good spread of skills and to craft a sensible party balance and establish roleplay relations. The intention was for this to be an all-day activity. My character isn't really important to the story, it was just that I was keen to play them and was disappointed when things were cut short. The key figures here are the GM and the Paladin. We spent an hour or two shooting the breeze as we talk about characters, work out relationship dynamics, draw up character sheets, and spend money on gear. The Paladin is a halfling and a riding dog, and as part of his purchases he gets a ghost-touched lance, reasoning that the BBEG is known to use necromancy, and he's concerned about ghosts or wraiths being an issue. I can't remember, but he may have had a few levels in Cavalier too. He was a holy person with a mount and charge attacks. The GM looks over all our sheets, purchases, and okays everything. As the game starts, we're a group of pre-established adventurers being given a mission to go track down the BBEG necromancer and throw down. His base is on a mountain or in the woods or something. Either way, we're going to have to make it through the wilderness to face him. As we're readying out for our adventure and we get out of town, a transparent figure of the BBEG turns up and monologues at us. We let him get most of the way through it, but at the end heckle him a little. Once we've got the gist, the Paladin says something like, "Away with you, Balgard," and says that he's charging. The GM says that the BBEG is intangible. The Cavalier directs attention to the ghost-touch lance. The GM looks a little nervous, but lets the Paladin roll. Of course he's also smiting evil. Why wouldn't you? It's a crit. He kills the BBEG. We figured that was a ghostly version of the BBEG or an illusion or something, not the BBEG himself. We're clapping Paladin on the back and about to set off into the forest to get the show on the road, but the GM goes quiet, nervous, and says that the one-shot is over since we killed the BBEG. At this point, we realize what actually happened and try and reassure the GM, as well as to offer solutions for how to proceed anyway. He insists that no, the BBEG was under a specific effect and was totally crittable by the Ghost Touch Lance. The Paladin even says that if it's going to end the adventure, he'd rather we retcon the hit, but GM says something about wanting to be honest and that retconning seems cheap. He's just clearly as shocked and upset, and just talking more about it is making him feel worse, so we all exchange a look and just drop it. We spend the rest of the day eating pizza, playing board games, and having a good time with it. Eventually, the GM brightens up a little too. No friendships were tested, but it was kind of awkward for a bit. Much later, the GM admitted that he should have found another way to carry on, but had a very closed mindset at the time and just got unreasonably upset about it to the point where he couldn't continue. Wow, though, that was the shortest one-shot I've ever been in. We spent more time on character creation than actually playing, and the only dice roll was from the Paladin's attack. TLDR, GM has an ethereal BBEG monologue at us at the outset of the adventure, but Paladin charges with a smite crit from a Ghost Touch Lance and kills him. The one-shot ends. That is quite hard as a GM to deal with, but it is a little strange that he didn't bother to just say that it was an illusion or some kind of ghostly figure, perhaps like a body double he sent to monologue, rather than just accepting that the BBEG was killed. I think that the GM must have been somewhat new, because I feel as most GMs who have had any experience know that it is not uncommon for players to absolutely ruin plans for enemies that you have, and that sometimes you really just need to wing it, so that way it seems cooler and like, oh, you didn't actually kill the enemy just yet, no, you know, it was a body double or something, or you dispelled the illusion. I do respect that the GM wanted to keep it honest and admitted that this was the BBEG, and I can understand where some of the upset might have come from, but I think that it is a good lesson as well, that you should always be prepared for players to absolutely screw over your plans, because that is what players do best. In any tabletop game, you need to be prepared. Our third horror story is titled, Why Did I Name the NPC That? NSFW, posted by u/coldsheepherder9157. Just ever so mildly NSFW. So, I'm the forever DM of our long-established crew, and despite the gags, I honestly prefer it to playing. World building, setting up systems of politics and cultures, plot hooks, characters, it all appeals to me. I always run a very open, homebrew sandbox type game. Go somewhere, there's something to do. The world is your enchilada. So, in our current campaign, the crew was hired to go to a city aesthetically based on the Islamic Golden Age with flintlocks to sneak into the dungeon below the Sultan's palace and bust out the guy on death row. Standard D&D stuff, they got it done easily. But then they went off script. I was prepared for it, they always take an adventure in a direction I didn't see coming. The crew noticed while they were there that the city practiced the chattel slavery of Dragonborn. They did not take kindly to this, especially the Dragonborn bard and his elven druid wife. So they decided to stage a coup. As you do. They had discovered a large force of pirates not far from the city that equaled the men-at-arms under the government. This was for a plot hook they never saw as they took it in a different direction. Instead, they plotted with the head pirate, a real piece of work and recurring villain over many campaigns, to get his help overthrowing the government and installing him as the head of the new regime. Why they thought this was a good idea is beyond me, and in later adventures they decided he had to be overthrown too. Anyway, during the plotting phase, the crew was holed up in an abandoned farmhouse, planning when a messenger from the Pirate King came knocking with plot-relevant details the DM totally wasn't making up on the fly. The messenger was a Dragonborn. At our table, they can have wings, a tail, both, or neither. This will be shortly relevant. After he delivered his message, the Dwarven Paladin asked for the messenger's name. He did this for 2 reasons. 1, it is very in character for his polite paladin to do. 2, his player is an old friend and knows the weakest part of my game is coming up with NPC names on the fly, so he pulls it to see what happens. I panic, my mind goes blank, and then I blurt out, Johnny Two Dicks! Why the fuck did I just say that? Why? The world will never know, I certainly don't. The game session derailed for a good 15 minutes as they dug into this. After harassing the poor guy, he finally sighed heavily, dropped trow, and yeah, his name was accurate. We are all in our 30s and 40s, but the crew was giggling like teenagers. They questioned this in-character once the laughter died down, and Johnny defensively said some Dragonborn have wings or tails. He just happened to have 2 dicks. Lay off. It's a minor horror story, mostly of me embarrassing myself, but I will never live it down. This was over a year ago in this 2-year-long and going strong campaign, and I still hear about it at every other of our weekly sessions. That's a good one. A good, lighthearted, just accidental slip of the tongue. It can't be helped. NPC names are tough. And go figures that all of the players are going to hold on to it forever. I know I sure would. I'm glad that the campaigns are going well, and I hope you all continue to enjoy your games. I'm sure that plenty of games also have stories just like that, where the DM can't come up with a name or something quite in time and just slips and it just becomes a running gag for ages to come. You are never going to live that down, my friend. Our 4th and final horror story is titled, I'm currently 9 months into tricking my players and I cannot keep it a secret anymore. Posted by you/Saint Tropius. I don't know if this maneuver has been done before, but here's my ruse. I, as a new D&D player and DM, found D&D virtually during COVID. That means, of course, things like the false Hydra. I played at a table for about a year before my table transitioned to a new campaign in which I've been DMing. I'm absolutely in love with plot twists, and I knew I wanted a large and long plot twist that would absolutely blow my players' minds. So, here's my ruse. I have an NPC in the party that is me who will, later in the campaign, die to a false Hydra. Dying to a false Hydra removes the memory of your life from all who know you, which is how I am currently RPing and ruling keeping this NPC a secret from my players. This NPC is not a DMPC, as he only really affects them in 2 ways. Number 1, how I'm ruling inspiration is using his bardic inspiration. Whenever I would give a player inspiration, I let them know, hey, you have a D8 you can add to the next D20 roll of your choice, and it's been going very well. Obviously, bardic inspiration is a lot more frequent and liberal than DM inspiration, but it's close enough that none of my players have noticed. Number 2, whenever my players ask for lodging, or just whenever an NPC takes a verbal note of how many players there are, I always have them overshoot by 1, my NPC bard. The first few times, my players corrected them or ignored it, but now the consistency has a few of my players raising concerns, such as, hey, we only have 6 people, but everyone keeps assuming we have 7. That's odd. My goal is, once my players get to a hyped up part of the map that they, for other reasons, are fighting to get to, I'll have them receive a letter, pretty standard for false Hydra plots, from the NPC that's been traveling with them. They don't know him, obviously, because I'm having their characters forget him in real time, stirring their interest in a place that they've already committed to checking out. Once there, I'll have an NPC beg to draw a portrait of them, they're level 6 right now and will probably be 10 at this point in the story, to commemorate their deeds as an adventuring team. I'll then commission an artist in real life to draw a portrait of my PCs, but add my NPC bard, who shares some physical features with myself, in the portrait. At that point, all the clues should be stupid heavy-handed enough for the party to be like, this isn't funny, something's actually happening. And then once they find out and kill the false Hydra, I'll unlock the memories and recount the major instances of receiving bardic inspiration from this throughout the story. Does this make sense? Is it cool, or am I just wigging out more than necessary? TLDR, I've had an NPC bard helping my players for the past year, but I've kept it a secret as I plan to have this NPC killed by a false Hydra, thus removing any memories, even in real time, of him. Edit. Thank you all for the celebration, and honestly all the cautionary tales as well. Yes, I am a newer DM, but I'm very privileged to be playing with my closest friends instead of just acquaintances. I think the context of we all know each other really well remedied any concern brought up in the comments, but either way, differences in the replies, some saying this is the coolest thing they've heard and are waiting for an update, and some saying this is the worst they've ever heard and feel bad for my players, is very cool. I'm taking it all in and really grateful for both ends of the spectrum. And some discussion in the comments. This is a really crafty idea. I like it. Make sure your players know and understand what the false Hydra does before they kill it. OP responds, haha, yeah, it's tricky because I want the system to be defined enough for it to work, but I obviously don't want to just link Dungeon Dad's video and say, hey, this is what's happening. We enjoy a reveal for the players almost more than the PCs since we're all newer, only like 3 years into it. Does anyone have good specs to have knowledge on creatures like that? Intelligence, history, intelligence, nature, or wisdom survival perhaps? This way you can tell the players that they recognize the creature and remember what it does. I'm just spitballing, very inexperienced myself. There are two PCs, one who is a part of an international assassin order who I will regularly lower history DC checks for him, and I have a PC playing a homebrew class called the Conduit, who are a sort of martial and magic police force, and it's the same deal. You guys have access to information, but also if you roll low on history checks, I'll give them false info. And yeah, that is quite the exciting little event going on. I am honestly impressed that you've kept this up for so long, and I have such major respect for the very long con that you've been going on. I totally understand where the OP is coming from with needing to just say it out loud, because they're probably hyping themselves out, but they still have so long to go before they're planning to reveal it. Because if the players are only level 6 now and they're planning to reveal it close to level 10, it's gonna be a bit. But a false Hydra plotline is always quite fun. I can't say I've ever experienced one myself, but for those who don't know, a false Hydra is a homebrew creation that has gained a lot of popularity over time. It basically has this ability called a blind song, where as long as it's singing, you basically forget that it's there at all. This also works with the victims that it kills as the DM or the OP is setting up in their post. It is a very good tool and has been growing in popularity because it's such a good tool to set up different mysteries and really just torture players with the unknown and wondering how they could potentially or even possibly defeat something that they don't even know is there. It makes for quite the scary monster, and this stat block that I found is quite powerful as well, so even when players might be able to find it and deal with it, it's going to take a lot of work to take it down. Have any of you experienced a false Hydra in your campaigns? Let me know. I'm curious about hearing more stories about them and how well they worked. I really like the concept of them too. I think that they make for very interesting monsters. That will do it for our episode of RPG Horror Stories. Thank you all so much for coming. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.